This is the K2 from Spyderco, designed by Farid Mehr. It is the first and, so far to my knowledge, only production level folder with 10V steel. And it is also probably the second largest folder Spyderco's ever made. Second only to the Tatanka. I bought this for my birthday this past September, and I have to say, I am really quite enjoying this knife. Not to say it's perfect, but it is one that I find works well for most of what I use knives for. And especially because I carry 2 knives a day, usually, I can carry another knife that makes up for the shortcomings of this knife. 10V steel, the #1 reason I bought it. Very high vanadium content steel, 10% vanadium, hence 10V. It's been around for quite a while. There was a discussion on the Spyderco forums about this knife that Phil Wilson chimed in, talking about where he was first exposed to it in the early 90s, and he thought he was the first guy to use it. But he had a conversation with Bob Lovelace, the Bob Lovelace, that Bob had tried this before, and for Bob, this would have been the steel he would make everything out of if only his customers didn't want really, really high stain resistance. According to Phil, this is essentially A2 tool steel modified with the 10% vanadium to give it wear resistance. It's been working quite well for me. It is a rather large knife. You see 4.25 inch handle. I mean 4.25 inch blade, not handle. I'm not positive what the handle length is. It's 4.5 inches, maybe 5, something like that. Titanium frame lock with the Reeve integral lock. Very Farid looking. It's actually quite a true production copy of his custom version. As far as details, this is a Tai Chung model, so everything is really spot on. In my opinion, the fit and finish of this knife is on par with any American-made mid-tech, which is why I'm pretty sure they made this in Taiwan. I have absolute confidence in the guys in Golden that they could make this, but if they made this in Golden, this would probably be a $300 to $400 knife. Excellent, excellent fit and finish. Everything was done well. This rounding on the spine up here is just absolutely fantastic. Extremely comfortable. The finishing on the handle scales is beautiful. This scratch is what I put in. Everything else is pretty much the same as the day I got it. Beautiful. This lock bar cutout line, really cool little aesthetic touch. I really like that. Lock bar stabilizer on the inside of the handle, as you can see there, that little screw. You can see it through the cutout. That's the stabilizer. I'm not one of these people that thinks those things are really necessary. I'll kind of take it. I'm sort of a take it or leave it sort of guy with that feature, but I like it that it's really unobtrusive and out of the way right there. Pocket clip is a modified Spyderco hourglass clip. Single position right hand tip down. Only 2 screws hold this knife together. You have your pivot screw and this single standoff screw, and then you have your lanyard tube, and everything else is open. Really, really like the handle construction of this knife. Extremely easy to take apart, even compared to a lot of other tie frame locks. Very simple to take apart, clean, put back together, which has become really, really nice to me because I use this knife a lot for the kitchen work, because as a folder, it cuts quite well. Not the knife I would choose for peeling potatoes or peeling vegetables, but for just rough chopping a lot of vegetables and stuff. Very nice knife. Also parts out a chicken quite well. I haven't really tried hacking through ribs and such, but I have taken off the thighs, parted that out to thigh and leg, cut off the wings, cut off just the breasts and the tenderloin, chicken tenderloin. Worked pretty well. Really nice upswept tip, so slices excellently. If you are one of these people that really, really likes to use the tip for a lot of intricate work, probably not the knife for you. It is a pretty dramatically upswept blade profile, so for slices and really nice dramatic slices, works quite well. This would actually probably do pretty good as a folding hunter if you were willing to deal with the corrosive issues. Because remember, 10V is not a stainless steel. Not a rust monster, certainly, but not a stainless steel. Still have to take care of it. I haven't had really any patina issues with this steel. In the kitchen, I've cut onions, tomatoes, celery, bell peppers, garlics, various herbs, lemons, limes, peppers. I mean, I really can't catch it on camera, but if in person, if you catch it in the right light, you can find just the barest hint of a patina is starting to form, but nothing drastic. Quite a nice, sizable handle. That's the knife in my hand. And obviously this knife is really, really designed for the saber grip. That's where it works well. It does fine in a pinch grip like this. This is how you use it in the kitchen, how I would use it in the kitchen. It does have this really nice flared handle at the bottom that gives you a really nice purchase to hold back like here. So if you want to do some snap chops on some stuff, say small branches or things like that, or on softwoods, this actually works pretty well for that. I have a bush out front right over there that I was trying some snap chops. Works pretty well with this. This certainly isn't something I would go and attack an oak tree with, obviously, but for light bushes and things like that, not terrible as a folder goes. As far as the cutout pieces, spider hole, not sharp. This is not rounded up here, the spine. This section from here to here is rounded, but after that, it's not. It isn't sharp, the edges were broken, but it's still certainly not rounded. Same thing goes for this, and again, the spider hole. Not something I've been concerned with, hasn't really affected me that much at all, but if you are one of those who really, really likes rounded edges on everything, might be something to consider. The handle. This is a similar thing to my opinion on the Adamas as far as the handle goes. I really, really enjoy the blade, but the handle, I think, could have been drastically better. They basically just very, very lightly chamfered the handle scales. No attempt at rounding, pretty much at all. As you can see, everything is still squarish. Even the pocket clip has a fairly square profile. So, in a saber grip, it's not bad because you're not putting a huge amount of stress with this type of cutting. This is not the grip you use for heavy cutting. It's just not efficient for it. This is the grip you use for heavy cutting, and in this grip, this knife just does not work very well. Not because this shape is wrong, but because nothing is rounded, and you get very sharp contact points right here, here, and along this clip, and in here. I haven't noticed anything right here, but this also is not broken very well, so that could be an irritation for some if you have just gigantic bear paws and you can reach all the way down there. I think if they would have done the edges of the handle scales the way my Talos, my Les George Talos was done, with a really nice, gentle rounding over, this knife would be a really, really fantastic ergonomic knife. The big handle, and even though this grip right here isn't super aggressive, because of the wideness and the nice hand-filling general shape, it doesn't slip a lot, but you get a lot of hot spots. That's really my only serious complaint with this knife, is that there's just very, very little attempt at rounding these scales. As for lockup, that is the lockup it came with in September. It hasn't moved pretty much at all. This in my opinion is lockup done properly on a titanium frame lock. Too many people want this very early lockup, you know, like that. And I mean, it's nice in terms of a lock longevity a lot of times, but it just has, that makes this lock functionally useless in terms of strength. This is where titanium frame locks should be, if not a little later. This will give you the maximum strength on this type of lock, and that's where I prefer it. I like it. There was a lot of complaints from people with this type of lockup, but at least with this example, I've had very little movement. I've opened this knife many times. I carried this knife. Probably this was a constant carry for me for probably 2 to 3 months after I got it, because I just really enjoyed this knife. And my lock hasn't moved pretty much at all. I have 0 lock play issues. The lock stays solid. No rock. Blade is solid in every direction. Spyderco did a very solid rendition of the titanium frame lock. As for the overall use of the knife, Farid Mehr built this as a hard use knife, but as is very common in the industry, he didn't really give any specifics of what he means by hard use. There was a huge row on the Spyderco forums where one user asked him if he could explain his thought process behind building the knife with the materials he chose and call it a hard use knife, because the user notes that the titanium frame lock is not anywhere near the strongest lock mechanism for hard use cutting, and the blade steel 10V is not very tough and good for hard use, and you can get embrittlement. And also because it's a super high carbide steel, not very high edge stability. Farid got pretty angry at that user because apparently that user, Farid felt, had besmirched his name on multiple occasions, but it never got explained. I personally don't look at this knife as a hard use knife. I'm not saying it couldn't. It's just, again, what is hard use? That people throw that term, it's kind of like the word tactical in the knife industry. People like to throw that word around without really giving any justification as to what it is. I use the knife for what I use it for. It works well. I don't do any crazy abusive tasks. I'm not going chopping at oak branches with it. I'm not batoning the knife. I cut with it. Whether or not it's a hard use knife, hey, I don't really care. It works for me. I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. To the 10V blade steel, as for edge retention, I'm enjoying the way the steel works. I've really come to the conclusion over the last year or so that super high carbide blade steels have been massively overhyped by everybody, especially as I've gotten more and more into using wood cutting as a medium. But I'm really satisfied with 10V. 10V and S90V as blade steels have really kind of won me over for high carbides. I still prefer M4 and ZDP 189 if I need wear resistance, but I really don't have any serious complaints for this 10V, given that it's a high carbide steel. This is not the ideal steel for woodworking. This is not the ideal steel for very high impact cutting. But for low stress cutting, low stress abrasive cutting, I'm finding it works very well. I did a run of probably somewhere around 1,500 cuts in a cardboard. That's all I could wrangle up at the time. The steel was fine. Obviously, it started to plateau at that point, but it would still cut paper without any serious difficulty. I've done a little bit of wood cutting. It wasn't pleasant because of the handle ergonomics, but from what I did see, this steel would do relatively fine. For that, it's done well in the kitchen. I'm surprised at how fine of an edge it's held in the kitchen. Granted, I do only have this at a 15 degrees per side edge. I haven't dumped it down to 10 degrees per side or even lower than that or anything like that, because it's 10V. I don't think it can hold that very well. But with the combination of the thin blade, it's ground quite thin. I don't know if it'll catch that on camera, but it's ground rather thin. And with this 15 degrees per side edge, it seems to have no problems holding this particular edge. This is the finish off of a Smith's Fine Diamond Stone, which is my preferred finish for this steel. And I'm enjoying this 10V. It works quite well for what I do. I know Ankerson did a test where he cut what is effectively a mile of cardboard with it and posted it to the Spyderco forums, and he was apparently still cutting paper with it without any touch-ups, which is a very valid data point, and that's pretty much in keeping with what a lot of people see with this steel. Very nice steel. Cliff did a video where he did, I think, something like 1,000 or so cuts with this steel into carpet, Granted, he did have a 12C28 blade. No, I'm sorry, 12C27 Sandvik blade do the same thing. But still, I think that was a really nice performance, and I'm really enjoying this knife and this steel. Anyway, guys, if y'all have any questions or comments, please dump them down below, and thanks for watching. Hope y'all have a good day.